Everybody is a winner by just being here, by just standing in front of an audience.
Ability is so much more than traditional assessments can capture.
The word traditional comes from tradition, which dictionary.com defines as the transmission of customs or beliefs from generation to generation.
What an exciting encounter. Welcome to another exciting and informative episode of the 2023 Inter-Secondary School Debate Series, brought to you in association with Caribbean Union Bank. Thanks for joining us this evening for our fifth encounter. Yes, fifth encounter. It's really exciting, going well so far. If you missed our fourth encounter, let me inform you that the Sir McChesney George Secondary edged out the Trinity Academy to advance in the competition. This evening, brand new encounter, the Seventh-day Adventist Secondary School and the St. Anthony's Secondary are meeting to debate the moods. The results from traditional assessment methods are poor indicators of a student's ability. The results from traditional assessment methods are poor indicators of a student's ability. Before we get started, let's meet the members of both teams. And this evening, as usual, we will start with the proposition, Seventh-day Adventist Secondary.
My name is Riviere Brown. I am the first speaker.
My name is Everett Williams. I'm the second speaker.
My name is Caden Doyle, and I'm the second reserve.
My name is Arissa George, and I am the third reserve.
That's okay. Thank you, Seventh-day Adventist Secondary. We now move on to the opposition, St. Anthony's Secondary.
Sia Shepherd, and I'm the first speaker. I'm Dinaja George, and I am the second speaker.
I am Lauren Curry. I'm the first reserve.
I'm Jackman, and I am the second reserve.
And at this time, I would like to acknowledge Dr. Semper, and Dr. Semper is the Education Director, South Leeward Island Conference of the Seventh-day Adventists. So once again, good evening to you, Dr. Semper, Education Director, South Leeward Conference, Seventh-day Adventists. It's great seeing you and great having you. Round of applause for Dr. Semper. As usual, we must have a courageous set of judges. As customary, our panel of judges will decide on the team that will advance in the competition. Let's meet our judges this evening. Kieran Murdoch, News and Current Affairs producer, Twin Island Media. Also joining us this evening, Sharon Herbert, Social Sector Planner, Ministry of Social Transformation. And no stranger to the judges panel, Jamil Lee, Program Coordinator, UNICEF. Please give our judges a round of applause. Our alternate judge this evening, Kadian Camacho, and our timekeeper, our beloved, as usual, Aisha Lynch. We will begin this evening's encounter with the proposition's first speaker, Riviere Brown, followed by Anicia Shepherd, St. Anthony's Secondary. We will then move on to the second speakers from each team. First speakers will be given 5 minutes for their presentations, and second speakers, 3 minutes. The bell will ring once at the 1 minute before the allotted time expires. And of course, it will then ring twice when the time has expired. Following the presentations, we will move on to the rebuttals. In that segment, 3 minutes will be given to each debater. It is time to hear from our sponsor, Caribbean Union Bank. The competition begins when we return. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us.
Caribbean Union Bank for all your banking needs. Credit cards, savings, accounts, and CDs. POS terminals for convenience. While helping you with small business development. Whether you need help to achieve your goal, or land loans and mortgages for your dream home. Supporting many programs to help the nation's youth. CUB is always here for you. Times are changing, don't you know? CUB, you can bank on us. Whatever you need, just let us know. CUB, you can bank on us. Saving your money and your time with the quality service we provide. Banking the better way every time. CUB, you can bank on us.
CUB cares. Call us today at 481-8278. Let's talk.
Welcome back to the 2023 Intersecondary School Debate Series. If you're just joining us, the moot for this fifth encounter in the first round between Seventh-day Adventist Secondary School and St. Anthony's Secondary is: the results from traditional assessment methods are poor indicators of a student's ability. We will now begin this encounter with the first speaker from the proposition Seventh-day Adventist School, Riviere Brown. Please welcome her.
Madam Moderator, esteemed judges, worthy opponents, listening audience, good evening. My colleague and I are here to support the moot that the results of traditional assessment methods are poor indicators of a student's ability. First, let us define critical terms. According to Mitchell, 1992, in his book, Law and Life, paragraph 2, traditional assessment is defined as a single occasion timed exercise. These include standardized tests, multiple choice, true and false, short answers, and essays. The American Heritage Dictionary defines an indicator as a thing that demonstrates or points out with precision the state or level of something. Ganiya Astika, in his study, An Analysis of a Student's Ability, defines a student's ability as the capacity to do something that is manifested through their actions. I will develop 3 points that will prove that the results of traditional assessments are poor indicators of a student's ability. Firstly, traditional assessments only give a vague idea of a student's potential as they are limited in their capacity to measure ability. Every human being created in the image of God is endowed with the power to think and to do. This means that all children have the ability to be great, to be functional, to be successful, and that ability refers to one capacity to do something. As stated by Kathleen Bailey in her book about learning about language assessment, traditional assessments are indirect and inauthentic methods of testing one's ability. They are one-shot, speed-based methods of assessment and should not determine a student's ability. Classroom settings, teacher competencies, curricular relevance, school ethos should all combine to impact assessment of students and their performance. Ability is so much more than traditional assessments can capture. It is the ability to be more than a mere reflection of other men's thoughts. It encompasses the ability to be innovative, to lead, and to successfully work it with others. Madam Moderator, given this, why is ability still being assessed using traditional methods? Secondly, traditional assessments tend to focus mainly on the lower level cognitive skills. When it comes to information, the sheer quantity therefore stored in one's head is no longer all that important. What matters is what you do with it. This means that in order to become successful, students need to be able to analyze, to manage, to integrate, to evaluate, and create information in different media, which implies practical problem solving and real-life applications. Traditional assessments, as we know it, cannot fully capture these higher level cognitive skills. Mr. Myrick Smith, Education Officer with responsibility for examinations in the Ministry of Education, agrees that the SBA components of CSEC assessments were added because it is widely accepted that traditional methods do not adequately indicate a student's ability. Rick Siggins and John Chapius remind us in an article what a difference a word makes, that assessment for learning should be a process and not an end result. Finally, traditional assessment methods has a one-size-fits-all approach to learning. Some people are just not good at written tests. Assessment should focus on how well resources are used for personal growth and development. As a matter of fact, brilliant minds that may not be able to produce academic responses at the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy within the time constraints of tests are marginalized and incorrectly labeled as not being capable students. I have friends who through conversations reveal their ability to think and to reason. However, they may not do as well as I may do on tests. Some have anxiety when it comes to tests. This negatively impacts their results. Would you then say that traditional methods are assessing their abilities? The answer is a resounding no. Traditional assessment assumes that all students can learn the same materials in the same way using the same testing methods, and that uniform and universal methods are sufficient to test learning and determine ability. Absolutely not. Ability is not a one-size-fits-all. It is a holistic approach to education that involves how a student can use spiritual, physical, social, and intellectual information to successfully navigate life. Evelyn Toffer says that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be of those who cannot read and write, but of those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Therefore, I maintain that the results of traditional assessments are indeed poor indicators of a student's ability. I thank you.
Thank you, Riviere Brown, Team Seventh-day Adventist Secondary School. She completed her presentation in a time of 5 minutes and 4 seconds. Another round of applause. Now for the opposition's first speaker, please welcome Anicia Shepherd, St. Anthony's Secondary. Welcome her.
Madam Moderator, honorable judges, audience, good day. Ours is the task to refute that the results from traditional assessment methods are poor indicators from a student's ability. Let's define key terms. Source from dictionary.com, poor is defined as, quote, deficient or lacking in something specified, end quote. While ability is, quote, competence in an activity or occupation because of one's skill, training, or other qualification. A lazy Google search leads to Dr. Samir Deckley of Florida State University, who defines traditional assessment methods as, quote, those assessment tools which include multiple choice tests, true or false tests, short answers, and essays, end quote. While this definition includes essays and short answers, there are some that do not. But Judge, there is a problem. And we implore you to listen to us carefully, because the ability to think critically is ripe within us. And we posit that the definition of traditional assessment methods should be further examined. Hear us out. The word traditional comes from tradition, which dictionary.com defines as the transmission of customs or beliefs from generation to generation, or the fact of being passed on in this way. Considering this meaning, how then can we accept the limited definition that is shoved down our throats when other forms of exams, such as problem-based assignments, presentations, reports, reflective pieces, critical analysis, and portfolios have been traditionally administered from generations to generations? These two then must also be referred to as traditional assessment methods. We do not stand alone in this analysis. Anthony Spencer, Educational Officer for Curriculum of Science in the Ministry of Education, agrees with us when he said, quote, the concept of traditional assessment needs to be carefully defined. What is traditional in one context may not be traditional in another. Presently, Each student in Antigua and Barbuda who attended secondary school has been fully schooled in the SBA, which deviates significantly from the historical type of pen and paper assessment. Thus, the SBA, while it might be considered as an alternative form of assessment in the US and many other countries, it is a traditional form of assessment in the region. End quote. It is therefore from this platform that we will base our argument. I will discuss the curriculum and inadequate teaching while my colleague will assess the construction of traditional assessments. Madam Moderator, no assessment method is perfect, but to use the word poor when referring to traditionally based assessments is going a bit too far. Let's begin to look at factors that have and are working against traditional assessment methods. All subjects are governed by a curriculum that guides the teacher as to what will be tested. How many times have students complained that said curriculum is too broad to be completed in the time frame? How many times do students enter exams not fully knowing all they are required to know for the exam? In such cases, their poor performances cannot be blamed on traditional assessment methods, but rather a large curriculum that cannot be completed. In 2022, the Jamaican Gleaner reported that only 37% of the students who took mathematics passed the exam. Indeed, many reasons were forwarded for these failures, including a very broad curriculum and the inability for teachers to complete it. I love my teachers, but students, how many times do we come face to face with teachers who are either poorly trained in the subject that they teach, or they're just not motivated to teach, and so their students fail their exam? Mr. Claire Brown, Director of Education, verifies this in a reference to math failure in Antigua in 2022. Quote, we've been looking at teacher quality because the bottom line is when you think of math, it can't be that the problem is with the students. It can't be that the problem is math itself. We have to just find the right approaches to somehow motivate the students. And the only way we're going to do that is to build teacher competence. Finally, judges, Mrs. West, Director of ABIS, explains that even what you consider to be non-traditional must work hand in hand with the traditional. She posits that assessments are 75% practical. However, the 25%, which is theory, and are tested through traditional methods, which lay the foundation for all skills learned at ABIS. She also indicated that it's these traditional assessments which helps teachers to see the gaps and to plug them. The view that traditional assessment methods are poor indicators to a student's ability is absolute fallacy. And judges, we totally disagree with this extreme assertion. Thank you.
Thank you, Anicia Shepherd, St. Anthony's Secondary, and she completed her presentation in a time of 4 minutes and 43 seconds. Another round of applause for Anicia. We will now move on to our second speakers, starting with the proposition team, Seventh-day Adventist Secondary School. Please welcome Everett Williams.
Madam Moderator, esteemed judges, worthy opponents, listening audience. My colleague has convinced us that the results of traditional assessments are poor indicators of a student's ability. However, I am happy to further develop this moot. Why are we using the same assessment methods used over 100 years ago in so-called modern-day classrooms? There has been a movement from traditional assessment toward alternative assessment. Ronald Datel, in his study, What Does Research Say About Assessment?, points out that alternative assessments are being used as a means of educational reform due to the increasing awareness of testing on curriculum and instruction. Furthermore, testing is seen as only one part of assessment, and a much broader concept of assessment is widely being used. Therefore, from this research, we can conclude that traditional assessment alone is a poor indicator of a student's ability. Traditional tests usually focus on a learner giving the expected correct answer, so that there's little to no room for doubt or discussion. Being submissive, focusing on the final product, expecting standardized answers, and giving feedback based on a test are not the only indicators of a student's ability. These are truly poor indicators of a student's ability. We are holistic beings, and education should provide for the total development of each and every child. Conversations, relationships, stages of brain development, social exercises, business acumen, decision-making, future thinking, project analysis. These collectively determine the student's ability to be and to become. Paul Buttica's study, analyzing teachers' perceived effects on authentic assessment, states that authentic assessment asks students to perform real-world tasks that demonstrate meaningful application of what they have truly learned. These help them to be guided towards a career path. They include, but are not limited to, portfolios, project works, rubrics, observations, self and peer assessment, story retelling, and observations. Assessment should strike a better balance between reliability and validity, focus more on the process rather than the result, and to further learning instead of being an instrument to determine who fails and who passes. Failing standardized tests is often equated to lack of ability. Such descriptive labels should be banned from schools. Alternative assessment can add value to the learning process and give learners a more positive experience. It is time we rethought the way we assess learning so that we can finally make room for true education reform where all children can truly believe that they're equal and look forward to collaborations, discussions, shared experiences, and applying real-life situations to the classroom settings and beyond. Every child has the ability to become contributing and successful citizens who will serve Antigua and Barbuda and beyond. Bright lights should not be dimmed. We educate for life, and this is why we insist that the results of traditional assessments are poor indicators of a student's ability. I thank you.
Thank you, Everett Williams, Team Seventh-day Adventist Secondary School. He completed his presentation in a time of 3 minutes and 2 seconds. Now let's hear from the second speaker, opposition. Dinedra George, St. Anthony's Secondary. Please welcome her.
Good day to all. In continuing the opposition's argument, I will look at the specific construction of traditional assessments, and you will see even more clearly why we are so opposed to the moot, which states the results from traditional assessment methods are poor indicators of a student's ability. Madam Moderator, every trained educator knows that assessments are not just written on a whim. Many things are considered, and I will state a few. In the construction of any assessment, the examiner must ask what specific ability is being tested. Such examiner will naturally refer to education psychology, Benjamin Bloom's, who in 1956 published his taxonomy on different levels of learning. They range from lowest to highest to include knowledge, comprehension, application, and synthesis. In 2001, synthesis was replaced by creation. Thus, when constructing any assignment, regardless of the method, and Bloom's taxonomy is used, cognitive abilities on all levels are measured. Therefore, judges, it is not the method that is a poor indicator of students' ability, but rather the fault most often lies in the poor construction of the assessments. Judges, before administering a traditional assessment, the examiner must design a grading rubric, which awards a set number of marks to different skills and abilities. Rubrics help to eliminate subjectivity since it streamlines the markers onto a more objective and accurate path to a better picture of the student's ability. If this is not done, of course it will reflect poorly on the student's ability. But is this the fault of the assessment? No. Moderator, there are some examinations that only use one method of traditional assessment. Oh, what can go so? This is dangerous. It limits cognitive abilities being measured. Wise examiners, such as CXC, know that several different methods of traditional assessment should be engaged. This is why there are 3 different traditional assessment methods for one subject. This gives a broader understanding of students' abilities. How can this be a poor indicator of a student's ability? Impossible. Finally, judges, it is not the traditional assessment method used that is a poor indicator of a student's ability, but rather it is the administration of said assessment. Today, we are finding intelligent students who are autistic, blind, dyslexic, and that's just to name a few. These students may need extra time, a reader, or a writer. However, some examiners are slow to recognize this, and students are allowed to fail. So sad. But when given these special considerations, they often pass. Audience, traditional assessment methods have stood their grounds from time immemorial. How can they be a poor indicator of a student's ability? SAS says impossible. Thank you.
Thank you, Denedra George, St. Anthony's Secondary. She completed her presentation in a time of 2 minutes and 53 seconds. A round of applause to all our debaters this evening. What an exciting encounter. I am very sure that you all will agree. We will take our second break at this point to hear from our sponsor, Caribbean Union Bank. The rebuttal segment is up next when we return. Stay with us.
Caribbean Union Bank for all your banking needs. Credit cards, savings, accounts, and CDs. POS terminals for convenience. While helping you with small business development. Whether you need help to achieve your goal. Or land loans and mortgages for your dream home. Supporting many programs to help the nation's youth. CUB is always here for you. Times are changing, don't you know? CUB, you can bank on us. Whatever you need, just let us know. CUB, you can bank on us. Saving your money and your time with the quality service we provide. Banking the better way every time. CUB, you can bank on us.
CUB cares. Call us today at 481-8278. Let's talk.
Welcome back to the 2023 Intersecondary School Debate Series. If you're just joining us, the Seventh Day Adventist Secondary School and the St. Anthony's Secondary are meeting to debate the moot. The results from traditional assessment methods are poor indicators of a student's ability. The rebuttal segment is about to begin. Each presenter will be given 3 minutes in which to complete their presentation. The bell will ring once at the 1 minute mark and twice when the time has expired. With all that said and out of the way, let the rebuttals begin. Welcome, Anicia Shepherd, St. Anthony's Secondary. Welcome her.
All protocols observed, I'm Anicia Shepherd. My worthy opponents, you said traditional assessments only give a vague idea of a student's capacity. Neither non-traditional or traditional measures a student's broad ability. Rather, they test students' ability to certain skills. Just like how the driver test is non-traditional and it tests your ability to drive, the English B multiple choice is a critical thinking and it tests your ability to critically think. You then quoted that Myrick Smith said that the SBA is added because the traditional assessment is not enough. But we have already established that SBAs in this region are a traditional assessment. My worthy opponents, some students may experience test anxiety. That is understood, but we need to stop coddling the students of this generation. If this was a real-life job experience, you have to sit down and get the work done. Deadlines will always be there. Due dates will always be there. Not everybody can win. Not everybody can get 100%. This can't be the participation ribbon generation. Oh my gosh. You then stated that traditional assessments focus more on the results than the process. And that would be true if the moot wasn't the results from traditional assessment methods measure the student's ability. Lastly, you said, why do we use over 100 years of traditional testing in the classroom? We have been using traditional assessments 2,000 years, since back with the Chinese before Christ. And after those 2,000 years, we have begun over and over to produce scholars. Just look at all these brilliant people in this room. And you're telling me that traditional assessments are poor indicators of a student's ability? No. Thank you very much.
That was Anicia Shepherd, St. Anthony's Secondary. She completed her presentation in a time of 1 minute and 57 seconds. To end the rebuttals this evening, we will hear from the proposition. Please welcome Riviere Brown, Seventh Day Adventist Secondary School.
Madam Moderator, esteemed judges, our worthy opponents, listening and viewing audience, good evening again. The opposition would have made a few notable points. However, they did not truly indicate why the results of traditional assessments are poor indicators of a student's ability. Firstly, we do agree that, to an extent, that traditional methods we do agree to an extent that traditional assessment formats can result in poor results. You can only go so far to improve the flexibility of this method. For example, the CSEC Paper 2 IT exam, students are asked to construct and correct the given code. While the problem-solving construction skills may be assessed, validating these best completed, while the construction skills may be assessed, to correctly assess if a code can work, it needs to be run on a computer. This implies that real-life applications are necessary to accurately indicate a student's ability. We did not say that traditional assessment methods alone cannot indicate a student's ability. We said that. Secondly, while traditional assessment methods may have been deemed reliable for ages, they have failed many intelligent persons in the past and in the present. Albert Einstein is a well-renowned theoretical physicist. Imagine a world without his theories. Traditional assessment has made many people successful, but traditional assessment also has made many people fall to lower grade statuses. This is why we believe that traditional assessments cannot indicate the results of students' ability. Finally, our opponents would have mentioned that there are several types of students and that accommodations are made to ensure that they would be comfortable in these situations. While this may be true, in most schools, these accommodations are not given. And most times, students have so much anxiety that they cannot use these accommodations. Why then are we still using traditional assessments the results of traditional assessments to indicate a student's ability? This is not so. In conclusion, we believe that because traditional assessments because many schools do not have accommodations for anxiety and that traditional assessments can be formatted, they are poor results of a student's ability. I thank you.
Thank you, Riviere Brown, Team Seventh Day Adventist Secondary School. A round of applause to both our students this evening who presented the rebuttal argument. She completed her time in 3 minutes and 6 seconds. This brings us to the end of the fifth encounter in the first round of the 2023 Intersecondary School Debate Series. Please, once again, ladies and gentlemen, students, show your appreciation for our debaters this evening. Excellent job by both teams. Stay tuned. We will hear from our judges on the other side of our break.
Caribbean Union Bank for all your banking needs. Credit cards, savings, accounts, and CDs. POS terminals for convenience. While helping you with small business development. Whether you need help to achieve your goal. Or land loans and mortgages for your dream home. Supporting many programs to help the nation's youth. CUB is always here for you. Times are changing, don't you know? CUB, you can bank on us. Whatever you need, just let us know. CUB, you can bank on us. Saving your money and your time with the quality service we provide. Banking the better way every time. CUB, you can bank on us.
CUB cares. Call us today at 481-8278. Let's talk.
Thank you for staying with us. The Seventh-day Adventist Secondary School and the St. Anthony's Secondary met in this encounter. The judges have deliberated and tallied their scores. To present their findings and to announce the winning team, please welcome Kieran Murdoch, News and Current Affairs producer for Twin Island Media. Welcome him.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you all for being such a wonderful crowd this afternoon. Never mind that the crowd is all on this side. I suppose that must have been a little, for the debaters having to look on one side of the room. As was stated, my name is Kieran Murdoch. I'm just going to be giving some brief remarks from the judges. Overall, we were pretty impressed with the tone and the conduct and the content of today's debate. I think both teams deserve a round of applause. We were particularly satisfied with the content and coherence. We found that on both sides generally, I mean, some may have gotten more points here, some may have gotten less points there. But on both sides generally, both teams did quite well to lay out what it is they wanted to say. Again, some a little less, but made a good effort to lay out what they wanted to say, and the content of their arguments was quite solid and quite strong. And I'll ask for another round of applause for that, because it is commendable. Just a few comments in terms of improvements. It's always important to clearly define, or rather redefine the topic. You introduce what the topic is, and it's important to, after you've sort of explored your definitions, to come back and say, okay, well, based on our research and our definitions and how we have addressed this issue, this is how we are going to treat this topic. So it gives you a very a strong platform, really, to go forward. The audience, the listener, the judges, the moderator knows exactly how you're going to go forward. A strong statement like that is always important. We also try to encourage the first speaker in each instance to give a general outline of what both sides will be doing, to say, I will address this and my teammate will address that. Like I said, we were generally impressed with the coherence of the debate. The arguments were sound. Of course, one thing judges always talk about is the quality of the rebuttals, because when you do a rebuttal, it's pretty much impromptu. And so then you really get to see, what's what, the substance behind it. And it is something that, tends to bring out your nerves. But don't worry, you will get more and more accustomed to it as time goes on. We saw in the rebuttals a good effort to recall points. We would counsel all teams, or both teams rather, can't say all, it's just two. We would counsel both teams to work on the refuting. Again, some would have been better than others in terms of actually addressing the points, but we did see a genuine effort to recall, raise, and deal with the points that were brought up by your opponent. So I've been probably talking enough. I'll just give the results at this point. The better, well, I'm going to give the better and the best and so on and so forth, and then the final points. The better debater for the proposition we found was Miss Riviere Brown, the first speaker for the Seventh-day Adventists. The better debater for the opposition was, in our opinion, Ms. Anicia Shepherd, first speaker. Opposition, St. Anthony's Secretary, just for the audience viewing. And the best overall debater, in our opinion, was Ms. Anicia Shepherd, St. Anthony's Secondary. And for the final announcement of the score, we total, the judges tallied, the average score for the proposition, Seventh-day Adventist, was 74 points. And the average score for the opposition, St. Anthony's Secondary, was 85 points. So in this instance, St. Anthony's Secondary has come out winning this encounter. All right, I think that's pretty much it from me, unless I'm required to fluff anything else? Anything else you want me to? No, I can. All right, no problem.
Thank you, Mr. Murdoch. Give Mr. Murdoch a round of applause. Thank you, Mr. Murdoch, and congratulations to St. Anthony's Secondary for winning this encounter. Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Now for our closing remarks from both teams, and first we will start with the Seventh-day Adventist Secondary School. Please welcome Everett Williams.
All protocols established. First, we would like to thank God for helping us during this journey. We'd also like to thank our teachers, parents, and teammates. Notably, we'd like to thank Dr. Semper, Miss Joseph, and Mrs. West, who helped us prepare for our debate. We'd also like to thank our opponents for truly putting up a fight. Debating for the first time was not an easy task, and we truly appreciate the experience. We thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. And I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to the teachers, principal, and our lovely students from the Seventh-day Adventist. This is their first time in the competition. So I think they need another round of applause for doing exceptionally well for their first competition. And I am hoping to see them year after year in the competition. Do we all agree? Yes, we do. We now move on to the winners of this encounter. A resounding round of applause for Denedra George, St. Anthony's Secondary.
Good day. Firstly, we would like to thank God for having us all here today. Our principal, our debate coach, and our teacher. Our teammates, we would also like to thank you too. All the individuals that contributed to the research and making of our speeches. We would also like to thank the judges for taking the time out of their day to be here, and our lovely moderator. Lastly, we would like to thank our opponents. It was truly an honor to debate with you. Thank you.
Denedra is a little shorter than I am. Thank you, Denedra. A round of applause. Yes, come on, please. Thank you to both our teams for doing an outstanding job this evening. And a big thank you to our studio and television audiences. Join us next week for another exciting edition of the 2023 Debate Series. And remember, the Debate Series 2023 comes to you in association with Caribbean Union Bank. Be sure to join us next week when the Antigua Girls High School and the Clear Hall Secondary School debates. Until then, I am your moderator, Priscilla Marsutton. Have a great evening. God bless.
Caribbean Union Bank for all your banking needs. Credit cards, savings, accounts, and CDs. POS terminals for convenience. While helping you with small business development. Whether you need help to achieve your goal, or land loans and mortgages for your dream home. Supporting many programs to help the nation's youth. CUB is always here for you. Times are changing, don't you know? CUB, you can bank on us. Whatever you need, just let us know. CUB, you can bank on us. Saving your money and your time with the quality service we provide. Banking the better way every time. CUB, you can bank on us.
CUB cares. Call us today at 481-8278. Let's talk.